Here's a peek at what guests had to say after the show.
We're back on the... Oh, hey, Doc. You snuck up behind me there. Okay, Max, do you think there are similarities between America's treatment of Obama and its treatment of the Harlem Hellfighters after they returned home from fighting World War, well, he says two, but one is the war?
Oh, no, of course. I mean, it's a tremendous backlash. Whenever we take 2 or 3 steps forward as a country, there's always going to be a step back. That's why we call them reactionaries, because they react. And, you know, because of political correctness, they're not allowed to speak their minds. Now they have to call him a Kenyan, or they have to use some other word. But when you see bumper stickers that say an African lion in the zoo and a lion African in the White House, it's pretty clear there's a backlash.
Oh. Yeah. What did Ted Nugent call him? An inhuman mongrel?
An inhuman mongrel.
And then is offended when you think that, when you call him a racist.
And even
where are you getting
before
this
they
from?
even started at the Sarah Palin rallies, people were there with monkey dolls. I mean, people were pretty explicit.
And I think the worst word is mongrel that he used, not subhuman, because mongrel implies race mixing.
Exactly.
That's the real crime against the racists, is black man, white woman.
I mean, there is a word that sticks in their throat. And that's the N-word. They want to say it so bad. Do you remember in the 60s they used to say nigra? That was a word they invented. They were so anxious and desperate, and they couldn't publicly, so they kind of just changed one, the nigra.
And it would be in the context of, I think it was Eastland, the senator, who used exactly that language, saying, you know, the Negro wants to be on his own, that he likes segregation, it's what he prefers, he's happier that way. So it would all be mixed into sort of trying to say that they're sort of weird social constructs.
But you knew where you stood back then, like when George Wallace said, segregation now, segregation always. Okay, we get it. Here's who you are. It's when people who are clearly against Obama say, oh, no, it's not about race at all. No, he's just a socialist African Kenyan lion in the White House.
You're talking about the fringe of the 0.01%, and that's defending the indefensible. Nobody agrees with that.
Well, unfortunately, when Ted Nugent said what he said...
If only that were the case.
I always said, it's not Ted Nugent, it's the people that still rallied around him.
It's the same argument people make about Muslims. Why is the majority not speaking up against the minority that is doing these the most extreme thing? When Ted Nugent says something like that, why isn't the Republican Party establishment?
I think you saw that when Cliven Bundy went racist. That's right. When Cliven Bundy went berserk and started going racist, I always thought the guy was a kook. Even before, you know, like Sean Hannity went down there and interviewed him, I thought the guy was a kook. And then he went berserk, and every conservative pretty much was like, this guy's nuts.
Well, what do you say about people who are not terrorists themselves, and I'm talking about Muslims or Cliven Bundy, but have the same agenda, or believe in the same things, or are very sympathetic to things that terrorists do? Because I think any time you use violence, especially to defend your religion, you are a terrorist. I mean, there are millions of Muslims who are willing to kill Salman Rushdie if they saw him on the street, in a second, in a heartbeat. Doesn't that make you a terrorist in your heart? Isn't Cliven Bundy a terrorist, even though he didn't do the things that those two Vegas killers...
crime. We're not going to go... First of all...
No, but there is connecting tissue between the two, is there not?
Yes, I'd give you that. Yes, there is connecting tissue.
Well,
but there are also plenty...
support.
Yeah, but there are also plenty of people who do speak up against this kind of extremism, but don't get the attention they deserve, don't get the kind of... because they're saying things that make perfect sense and therefore don't make news.
Dr. BLASER, is there any link between the overuse, this is a great question, the overuse of antibiotics and the autism epidemic? Because that's a hotly debated issue.
So we know that the bacteria in our body are helping program how the brain develops. And 1/3 of the babies born in the United States today are born by C-section. They don't have the normal found 1/3, and in some countries it's
Why is
half. Many reasons, but it's like antibiotics. It's crept up and up and up. Something that's good is overused. In Scandinavia, it's only 12 or 15%. In Brazil and Ecuador, it's almost 50%. And here we've gone from 18% to 32%. So it's gone up. So the bacteria aren't normal. And now the average child in the United States, before they're 2, they've had 3 courses of antibiotics. And these have collateral effects. So I don't know whether autism is due to this, but it's plausible and needs to be tested.
Yeah, and I can tell you, just having kids, a trip to the pediatrician almost always ends with an antibiotic. You know, and they're so overused that at a certain point they have to step up to the next one because the first course of antibiotic no longer works on a little kid whose immune systems are still developing. I think it is very much overused.
And there's a lot of variation in how doctors use antibiotics. They're using antibiotics 50% more in the South than in the West.
Why?
Culture and practice.
What's the culture? What is it? Is it like fried?
Maybe it has to do with that.
And isn't it marketing
Fried
too?
antibiotics? That's ridiculous, doctor.
Chicken fat.
But the facts are correct.
Isn't it marketing too? Because I remember just even in the doctor's offices, the company that makes amoxicillin has a big placard. As soon as you walk in, they're supplying free
Right.
samples. Yeah. I mean, it's very much pitched.
Like free lunches.
Yeah, it's okay. All right, well, I hope we did some good tonight educating people, and I hope they won't take it as much. All right, is Dick Cheney really, this is for you, Andy, your personal hero when it comes to Iraq?
I think Dick Cheney's a great man, and I think he's very, I think he's very misunderstood. I mean, okay, so
Andy, I fundamentally disagree.
this is a guy, though, he doesn't care what other people think, and after September 11th...
True.
Right.
I'll give him that.
Right, he has no pollsters.
Right.
And look, after September 11th, 2001, G.W. Bush and Dick Cheney had a very serious job, and that was to make sure that the country did not get attacked again. And that was their
Again,
oath.
like it did under their watch.
Well, look, I mean,
Like when they were president.
Osama bin Laden festered. I'm not gonna blame Bush for bin Laden. I'm not gonna blame Clinton for bin Laden.
I will.
He was a terrorist that festered in Afghanistan.
Bush had a memo entitled "Osama bin Laden is standing right behind you."
Well, look, Clinton had a chance to take out Osama bin Laden in Jalalabad, and he didn't do it.
Right.
But can I just make one edit
Sure.
to what you said? After 9/11, George W. Bush had a constitutional responsibility to keep the country safe. The vice president has no constitutional authority.
Cheney's brighter
and should
than
not
Bush.
have been
I
running,
mean-
but he should not have been running that White House. He should not have had the power, the unelected, unconstitutional power he had over George W. Bush.
All right. From the sublime to the ridiculous. Max Brooks, will you please settle a bet? Are you named after Maxwell Smart? Well, I know why they're asking that, because your father wrote the great show Get
yes,
Smart.
he wrote Get Smart. No, I'm named after Maximilian, subject of the Kaiser, and my grandfather.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Subject of the Kaiser.
Subject of the Kaiser, said it right there on his passport. German Jew, very proud. Yes, we're German, we're Jewish. What could possibly go wrong?
Okay. Bobby, are the ethics of journalism changing?
No, they're not. People who are practicing them sometimes don't apply them as much. The ethics are the same as they always were.
What are those ethics?
Report the truth, provide context when you can, and give all sides of a point of view, give all sides of a story that if you can possibly do it.
Of course, you know,
It's very simple.
The problem with the question like that is that people, you say journalism or media, and people think of different things. I mean, Entertainment Tonight is media,
Right. Yep.
and Dexter Filkins is media, and you know, there's this big array in between.
Some guy blogging online is also claiming to be a journalist, and and often is not, and their ethics, they don't necessarily follow all the ethics that we're required to.
We do here, though.
Absolutely. Hell yeah.
Scrupulously. Thank you very much, everybody.
Real Time with Bill Maher. Ask Bill and his guests your questions right after the show at HBO.com or on Twitter.